And welcome to another edition of Cyclone InCYders. As always, alongside Matt Van Winkle, and joining us once again, coming back from the first semester, Mr. Comrade Dan Casson will join us for all three segments tonight as he had nothing better to do.
I believe the correct term that you coined,
Dan
the Assassin Casson.
Dan the Assassin Casson. We'll probably refrain from that because it's anyway. We'll continue as we do first in. Every time on Cyclone InCYders, men's basketball picked up a huge road win down at Manhattan, Kansas, taking down Kansas State 65-61. Great game by senior Scott Christopherson. Really was the spark Iowa State needed. Tallied a season-high 29 points. And, Matt, we'll start with you. He's been really stepping it up the last few games, and that's why Iowa State's been winning the last few ball games.
Absolutely. This team relies on Scott Christopherson every time they go out on the court. They need him to hit threes. They need him to, be that leader out there, be that senior leader. It's going to be sad to see him leave come the end of this season. He and Chris Allen have been two guys that you just looked at every game and you just look for scoring. They play good defense, but you really, really, really rely on Scott and Chris to contribute on the offensive end. You look at Scott's numbers there, 12 points per game, shooting 47% from three-point range. Just outstanding numbers from Scott, and another great game out of him against Kansas State.
And you touched on Chris Allen, and those are the two seniors on this basketball team, the two guys that really need to lead this team. They've never played together, and you got to have your senior leadership. Sure. So, Dan, we've seen Chris Allen at his best. We've seen Chris Allen at his worst.
Yep.
And right now, he's kind of playing that mediocre type of game, but he's scoring and he's passing, and he's really doing good things for the Cyclone basketball team.
Chris Allen coming in, and we were wondering who's going to run the point, and Scotty has had a difficult time. I mean, all these people cycling through at the point guard. Chris Allen, when he's on, he's a real game changer. I mean, he can knock down the shots that a lot of players can't. I mean, he can do the fadeaway. He can drive to the hoop. He can hit the three just like that. Yeah. He's a guy that when he's on fire, he can really put the team on his back. And that's someone that the Cyclones have longed for basically since Craig Brackens left in 2008, or in 2009. So you kind of had that with Deontay, but not really. Chris has tried to step into the role, and when he has been successful, it's really propelled the Cyclones to victories.
Well, Chris Allen's really been the guy that he'll hit a big three, and he'll get the Cyclones back into some games. When they're down, on the road and they need a big shot, he's the guy they look to. He and Scotty have really been those guys this year. Chris Allen really been impressing me this year.
And you stress Chris Allen, he's been there before. He's been to the Final Four. He's been to the championship game with his days at Michigan State. So these big games, as for everybody else, maybe a Scott Christopherson, a Melvin Edgem, who hasn't quite been there at the D1 level in those big games, Chris Allen brings some composure, and also he's going to stay calm. He's going to talk his teammates. He's going to get them through it. But at the end of the day, Royce White is still going to have to be the leader of this basketball team, not only scoring, but dishing.
Boy, I mean, you talk about the last second shot that he had against Kansas State, and you're talking about composure at a key moment of the game. And Royce certainly had that against Kansas State the first time that they met. And, this is a guy that, you're right, he's a really good passer, but at the same time, he's a horrible passer. I mean, it seems a lot of times that when I watch him, I feel like at times he's a really good passer and he can just dish the ball like nobody's business. And at the same time, he tries too hard. He'll pass it way too fast, and the other players just aren't ready for him. It's almost like he's playing above everybody else, and no one else can catch up to him.
The thing about Royce is that he sees the floor so well. He almost sees plays happen before they even happen. He is just an outstanding. His vision out there is just crazy, and he sees guys open when he's coming down the court, bringing the ball up. He'll find a pass. He'll hit him behind the back. It's unbelievable what this guy can do. And he's the only guy in the nation that's leading his team in points, rebounds, assists, steals, and blocks. So Royce White, he can do it all, man.
Royce White, like you said, sees the floor very, very well. Probably he's one of the best I've seen going through Iowa State. I've been watching Iowa State a long time with knowing where his teammates are going to be. But like you touched on before, sometimes his teammates don't even expect him to make the pass, and those result in turnovers. It's going to cause him. He's going to settle down as we get into the Big 12 tournament, hopefully NCAA tournament play. We might as well touch on the other two starters. Chris Babb. His shot really hasn't been here the last few games. He did knock down one against Kansas State. I think he only went 1 for 5 from the three-point line. But he's contributing to this basketball team. We've stressed it all year. One of the very premier defenders in the Big 12.
Gosh, he's really good defensively. He is
right
now.
That's an understatement.
He's in an absolute abysmal rate at shooting the basketball. I mean, I don't understand what's going on with him. He's just in a cold streak that has been going on for it seems like 2 weeks. But Everybody has been telling me that Chris Babb plays wonderful defense, and for that game against Kansas State over the weekend, I just watched Chris Babb. I saw the shots obviously, but I was focusing on the defensive end of Chris Babb, and I was watching what he does, and he really does play good defense. He does the face guarding deal that everyone talks about. You watch him, and he's like this
watch his feet
all day long.
Unbelievable.
And he really is a first-team all-defensive player in the Big 12.
We talk about Babb struggling shooting this year. They really haven't needed him because so many guys have been stepping up offensively. You got 4 or 5 guys in double figures every night, but you got Chris Babb, just playing outstanding defense, shutting out, some of the nation's best scorers, holding them to 6 points a game. I think he did that to Rodney McGruder last time. But, Chris Babb, Fred Hoiberg talked about this in the press conference this week, is that he really saw Chris Babb his defense starting to elevate when they were out in Italy over the summer. And he said all he did is watch his footwork and how quickly and laterally he moved against some of those good shooters. And that's what he's been able to do this year, is hold those guys, contain them, and done a really good job at it.
And you got to mention Melvin Edgem, Tyrese McGee coming off the bench, Percy Gibson, and all 5 guys, including the people on the bench, are really going to have to get their game together because they got a big one tomorrow night down in Columbia, Missouri. We've actually got some highlights and interviews from that game from Fred Hoiberg and Scotty Christopherson, if we can run those here just in a second. But once we get those up, this is a big chance for Iowa State to get back into the scene as we wait for the interviews here, Matt. What do we have to do here? Missouri coming in 25-4, and last time they beat Iowa State by 6. So it's going to be a big game tomorrow.
Well, that was a game that Iowa State, that was in Ames, that they led at halftime. Iowa State really wants to get some revenge. Coach Hoiberg and the players talked about that on Monday.
I think all 3 of these last games are great opportunities for us, and we took care of the first one in a very hostile environment. Something that I'm really proud of our guys for. Now these last 2, going into Missouri, coming off a loss, we know it's going to be difficult, but we're going to go down there and throw everything we have at them and see what happens. But that's an extremely difficult place to play, a place where they've lost 1 game all year. And then we get to finish off with Baylor at home, and you want to play well in your last opportunity to play in front of your fans for the season. Senior night, great night for Scott and Chris Allen to go out there and have one more chance to play in front of, I think, the best fans in the country. So it's 2 great opportunities. And our guys will be ready, they'll be prepared, and I think we'll play well. Oh man, you have to have toughness when you go play on the road. You have to be in it together. The thing I was most impressed with our group at Kansas State was they go on end of the first half, beginning second half on a 20-1 run. And this is a group early in the year that may have folded, and it probably wouldn't have had a chance to win that game late. But they found a way to come together. They were huddled. They were talking to each other out there, and that shows the growth of our group is how they've been able to come together. You're on a road. Anybody that's seen a game at Bramlage Coliseum knows how hostile of an environment that is. You have to find a way to play together as a group, and that's, I think, the most growth that our team has had is how they've come together, especially on the road where you need to have it.
I think, just staying focused. I mean, realistically, we probably, people are saying that we're locked for the tournament, and, it's important for us not to listen to that. Personally, just for me, because, I know how it can go, bad and wrong at the end when you think it's supposed to go one way and it goes another. But, for us as a team, we just got to stay focused and hungry. We got a great chance to, go from a team that is doing some good things to a team that's doing some great things. And, that's the chance we got this week.
They have great guards. They're very well coached. They play well with, what they have. And, they're kind of shorthanded in, the height sense, but they adjust well. So, we just gotta play around and, whether it means to attack inside or, take advantage of our height and, go there. And, I think last time they got some foul trouble pretty quick, with Royce getting out. But, hopefully we can, kind of learn from that and figure out what we need to do.
And you heard Chris Babb right there. Remember last time when Missouri did come up to Ames, Chris Babb scored their leading scorer, Marcus Denman, to only 4 points, and those 4 points were garbage free throws under 2 minutes in the game. So that shows how such a lockdown defender he is. And we're taking a look at the stats right here for the game tomorrow night down in Columbia. Missouri 25-4 on the year, 12-4, but half those losses have come in their last 2 games. They lost one in Columbia to Kansas State and then lost that heartbreaker to Kansas on Saturday. So this is a team who's lost 2 straight. They're vulnerable, but they're still going to be tough down in Columbia.
Missouri's a team that they don't have a lot of height, but they got a lot of speed and a lot of athleticism and a lot of shooters on that team. they out-rebounded Iowa State here in Ames. And that's something that Iowa State's really going to need to key on tomorrow and during tomorrow's game is really they got to own on the glass, Dan. And, Missouri is a great team, but, we know they can shoot the ball, but Iowa State's got to play defense against them too.
Well, I tell you what, the whole deal with the Big 12 is matchups. You talk about these teams playing each other. Some can be really close, even regardless of record, and some can be complete blowouts.
Sure.
Iowa State doesn't match up with Baylor well, but Iowa State matches up with Missouri well because Iowa State has a lot of guards, and obviously so does Missouri. Missouri thrives on that four-guard lineup. You're right, though. It's a lot about defense. It's who can stop the other team. It's can Chris Babb stay out of foul trouble? We haven't talked about that all year, and now all of a sudden in the past 2 games, he's had 2 quick fouls in the first half. He's had to sit out. If he stays in the game and can provide that defensive spark that he always does, and if it's also foul trouble to follow the other players.
Yeah.
Royce, if he stays out of foul trouble, but it will be a defensive battle, and who can stop the other team because it might turn into a shootout.
And it's interesting you bring up foul trouble because when Missouri came up to Ames last time, Missouri had 2 guys foul out in that game, and they were only left with 5 guys left by the end of the game, and they were able to pull it out. It really had a great second half, and that's what got Iowa State. Because they led at halftime, but they just kind of fell.
It's going to be a tough one tomorrow. We're running out of time on this first segment, but I want to touch quickly. It's a big week for Iowa State coming Saturday. Yeah. Senior night to honor Chris Allen and Scotty Christopherson, and a very good Baylor team coming up to Ames, which arguably probably the worst conference loss so far. Not like to a bad team, but Iowa State where they didn't play well was to Baylor.
It was a weird
down
game,
in Waco.
though.
It really was a game that nobody really saw. It was on ESPNU.
And there were no students.
And it was on a Monday.
It was on a Monday. It was
One
a
day
big
of
Monday,
rest.
which Baylor seems to play every Monday. If we can pull up the graphics real quick on Iowa State Baylor, this is going to be a big game to determine seeding into the Big 12 tournament.
Sure.
Iowa State, if they pick up a win tomorrow night against Columbia, will remain tied for 3rd in the Big 12 with Baylor, and that would also drop Missouri down. But taking a look at the stats real quick here, both teams pretty even all the way down the line. So it's a game, especially at Hilton, where Iowa State can win.
I've been really looking forward to this game all season long. I think this is a game that I've thought all season long that Iowa State had a good chance to play Baylor, or to beat Baylor at home. But when they went on the road, I was a little bit uneasy, but unsure about that game because, they had 1 day of rest, so you got to give them that. But, you look at their numbers, they're totally evenly matched, as you mentioned, except for that number 9 spot sitting next to Baylor's name. These teams are pretty much deadlocked, and they've got a chance to fight for that number 3 spot in the Big 12 as well, Dan.
And a big key as we'll pull up his graphics here real quick, let you touch on him before we go to break, Dan. Perry Jones III, probably one of the best prospects in the Big 12. He's really the spark for Baylor and really makes that team go.
I believe he was picked as preseason Big 12 Player of the Year. I mean, he's got 13 points per game, shooting about 50%. Like I said before, Baylor presents a lot of matchup problems with Iowa State, and that was basically the reason why. That and the fact that they shot 72% from the field in the second half. But this is, if Hilton Magic will obviously serve its course here and make this game more competitive than it was in Waco. But this is going to be a really tough one for Iowa State to pull out in the end.
It's
going to be a big week for Iowa State. As we mentioned, Missouri tomorrow night, Baylor at home on Saturday. We've got to hit our first break here on Cyclone InCYders, but coming up next, we'll talk Iowa State women's basketball. They fell to Oklahoma State this weekend, but they got a chance to rebuild. They got Kansas State tomorrow night, and then number 1 Baylor on Saturday. We'll talk all about that when we return. Stay tuned. You're watching Cyclone InCYders. And welcome back to Cyclone InCYders alongside Matt Van Winkle and Dan Cass. And as we do each and every week, we're going to touch on the Iowa State women's basketball team. And seniors Chastity Cole and Lauren Mansfield will go out for the final time inside Hilton Coliseum tomorrow night. Coach Bill Fenley and some of the players talked about what that's going to be like right here.
I think as far as what they'll be remembered for is still to be written. It's a unique situation. They're not 4-year seniors. They came here for different reasons, but Chaz has a chance to play in 3 straight NCAA tournaments, possibly Lauren back-to-back. They've filled a position of great need for our team. Kansas State, I think, probably expects the same from us. It's going to be the same game, low scoring, close, grind it out. The thing I've always admired about the Kansas State team, and that's a credit to their players and their coaches, they never beat themselves, ever. And that says a lot. I don't know if there's a better compliment you can pay to someone than that. They know how to win. They know how to win close games. They're an NCAA tournament team, and certainly a team that will have to play in a very efficient manner.
Yeah, I think it's extremely important. Coach Shire kind of said to us after we lost the game at Oklahoma State, she said to us, it's now one game, one focus. We really need to get this win to finish the month off. I think just the games that we've played, we've had a lot of games at home, and so we've been really focusing on, we need to get these wins and we need to get back on track. And so we had the February focus, and we've just been trying to get as many wins as we can.
Well, we were talking about that, and she said she might get a little teary-eyed just to be able to see them in the stands watching her play. I think that Lauren understands how much this game means to us, and the fact that our parents are there. I think she's going to want to play to her best abilities and have them see that game, and it being on senior night is just a plus for her.
And there you hear Chastity Cole just talking a little bit about her roommate, Lauren Mansfield, whose parents are going to be flying into the game tomorrow to watch her play for the first time as a Cyclone. So it's going to be a special moment for the seniors. Two seniors that it's kind of interesting because Bill Finley was talking there. It's a unique group of seniors because they aren't four-year Cyclones. This is the first time that Bill Finley's ever had two players that are seniors that didn't play for all 4 years. And, we look at Kelsey Bolte last year as a good example of a four-year Cyclone, and that's something that he's really missed this year. But Lauren Mansfield and Chastity Cole have been kind of unique this year because Lauren, outstanding shooter. We've seen her struggle throughout this year, but Chastity Cole's been that defender that they're going to miss.
And as you mentioned, those two seniors, they want to go out on the right foot. But really the player who's really front and center for this Iowa State women's basketball team, no argument, is Chelsea Poppins, the junior. She's averaging 15 points per game, shooting 70% from the free throw line, shooting 51% from the field in only 27 minutes. So, Dan, she really is the true leader of this basketball team.
Pretty sure she shot 80 free throws against Missouri. I watched that game. She was always at the free throw line. But why she gets at the free throw line is because all she does is take fouls and takes charges. Everything that she does is all about having that physical presence in the low key. One reporter called her a tractor down low. You can use any type of that kind of word to describe Chelsea Poppins. She's having an absolutely phenomenal year. Like you said, 15 points a game. She is really good in the post. There are times when she struggles, and there are times when she doesn't get the calls the right way. Like I said, she relies a lot on that charging and taking a charge.
You gotta love it though.
But she's a lot of fun to watch, and even though we have these two seniors going away in Cole and Mansfield, Chelsea Poppins will be back next year, and she'll be probably, in my estimation, an all Big 12 conference,
no doubt. She's a
candidate, whatever, award player, whatever you want to call her.
Yeah. And then the leader for Kansas State is arguably Brittany Chambers. She's really been through the thick and thin for Kansas State, averaging 14 points per game, 35% from the field, 74% from the free throw line. She's going to be a player that's going to really play well for the Kansas State Wildcats. And then Iowa State, remember, did beat Kansas State down in Manhattan. But as we continue to look forward for this basketball team, really still trying to play their way into the NCAA tournament, and they really could make some noise Saturday as they go down to Waco, Texas to battle number one, undefeated in the conference, undefeated overall, Baylor.
Yeah, and this is a team that, they took that February 1 month, one focus mentality. Did a good job. 6-2 in February is not bad for the way they started the season 0-5. Got a big chance to make a statement on Saturday in Baylor. It's going to be a good game. I think it's going to be really tough to go down in Baylor and play. Obviously, Brittany Griner, probably the best player in the country, hands down. It's going to be.
You're looking at these stats, Dan, and they're just a little bit ridiculous how strong Baylor is in every category.
They have 80 points a game.
It's ridiculous.
That's more than the men's team for Baylor. That's just incredible. They're shooting almost 50% from the floor. Haven't lost a game all year. You talk about the matchup problems that Iowa State men have with Baylor. This is like a whole nother atmosphere of that with Brittany Griner.
You just got to throw Chelsea Poppins on Griner and just have her just sell out.
That should be a fun thing to watch, right? Chelsea, who can get the charges first, right?
Yeah.
Basically that's it.
You look at Brittany Griner's numbers right here. She's shooting 80% from the free throw line, which is a big number for a big girl down low who's going to get fouled a lot, averaging 22 points per game.
Goodness.
60% from the field. She really is just dominant for this Baylor team, and Kim Mulkey down there. So it's going to really be a challenge for Iowa State. They're going to have to play their best game of the season. I remember having this conversation with you last semester, Dan, about the Oklahoma State football game leading into that one, saying they're going to have to play their best game.
Yeah.
And you saw what happened. Another chance for Iowa State athletics.
Bold statement. Let's hear it.
I mean, this isn't. I mean, you know, this game isn't at Hilton Coliseum, so there's a little disadvantage there. But you know, hey, whatever happens, happens, man.
We're running out of time here on our second segment of Cyclone InCYders.
I'll predict the win. You know what? I'll predict the win right here on this show. Iowa State women will take down Baylor in Waco.
You heard it. Dan Casson taking the Iowa State women against
Why not?
Baylor this Saturday. They got Kansas State tomorrow. They're going to have to worry
How about
about
a
first.
sweep? How about a Baylor sweep? Men's and women's, huh? How about a Baylor sweep? Call it right
Could
here.
happen.
It could happen. Find out next week when you tune into Cyclone InCYders. We got one more segment coming tonight, and that's we're going to take a look at the Big 12 men's and women's standings, the AP Top 10, as well as highlight our 2 games of the week. Stay tuned. You're watching Cyclone InCYders. And welcome back to Cyclone InCYders. Matt Van Winkle, Dan Casson alongside me. Let's jump right to it and pull up the Big 12 standings if we can. There's still a lot to be handled right here, guys. Kansas looks like they're going to be the number 1 seed, but look at 2 through 4. Missouri, Baylor, Iowa State, only separated by a game. And Iowa State does have to win tomorrow night to maintain pace with those 2 teams. But if they do, it drops them all back. But then look at 5 through 7 once again. There's still a lot to be determined going into the Big 12 tournament.
Oh, absolutely. Kansas State's got a big one right now with, I think it's Texas Tech.
A&M.
Texas A&M, thanks. So, I mean, there's a lot to be said, as you said, Aaron. 11-5 Iowa State sits right now. They got to win. I think they got to win out to secure that 3 seed. Baylor, it's going to be a big game at Ames. They have a chance to solidify that 3 spot. So it's going to be a shootout, I think. But Big 12 tournament time comes around and anything can happen. We've seen Iowa State go in there as a 1 seed and get upset.
You saw those 3 Big 12 teams, 3, 7, 9 in the top 10. If we can pull up the AP top 10 real quick here, Andrew. There's still a lot to be determined, not only for the Big 12, but also in the national stage. Who's going to be those 4 number 1 seeds? Sure, you got your Kentucky, you got your Syracuse, but then those last 2 number 1 seeds, that's really jumping all the way down to maybe a Baylor at a number 24-5. Probably not, but Michigan State's probably going to jump up there. And right now, Kansas is probably in the driver's seat.
If I were the bracketology guy and the season ended today, I'd pick Kentucky, Syracuse. I would put Kansas in there ahead of Duke, and I would put Michigan State in there. I think Michigan State at 16-1. Obviously, that's not right, but Michigan State has had a phenomenal year. I thought that they would have a drop-off after last year, losing all those players, but Draymond Green, this is really interesting this year, I think, with these top 5 teams. You talk about Kansas and Michigan State. Those are 2 teams that had a lot of talent last year, and they all went away. And you thought this year there was going to be a little decrease. They're going to be on the downturn in terms of Kansas-Michigan State team. But the ability of Thomas Robinson and Draymond Green to step into that dominant role of player of the year candidate. When you talk about Kansas and you think of the Morris twins, you remember those guys from last year? And Robinson was this afterthought that was just this junior that went out there to give them a breather. Now he's a player of the year candidate. And you talk about Draymond Green, you had Kalen Lucas, who is one of the best players in Michigan State history, and he's gone, and Draymond Green has stepped in. Kalen Lucas, Draymond Green, different players, in terms of position on the court. Sure. But those 2 guys, Green and Robinson, have really stepped up and have proven themselves, and that's why those teams are 3 and 5.
And you mentioned in rebuilding years, those are the types of programs that can still be successful and be somebody to reckon with in the NCAA tournament. And 2 other teams who consistently are like that is Duke, North Carolina, and once again, they're going to do battle in one of probably the biggest rivalries in the country, Matt. So last time Duke won on the last second shot. This one's actually in Cameron Indoor Stadium. So what do you expect from this ball game?
Well, Casson, you talk about it. Michigan State maybe being a 4 seed, but Duke and UNC, whoever wins that game is probably going to win the ACC. Right now, they're in a deadlock for the ACC right now. So whoever wins this game probably will jump up in the standings and will definitely win the ACC. Austin Rivers hits that big shot at Carolina. It's just a huge heartbreaker for the Tar Heels. But I love UNC. It might just be a soft spot in my heart for Harrison Barnes because we went to school together. But I do like North Carolina. They do really good things in the NCAA tournament as well.
Another big game, we'll touch on that really quick here, coming up Saturday as well, is in the Big East. Marquette who really is climbing under the radar right now, climbing up the polls. They're going to battle Georgetown. Marquette at number 7, 24-5, 11-5 in the Big East. Georgetown, number 12, also 11-5 in the Big East. And the Big East, you always think of this conference who is the really strong conference. You got your Syracuse up top, but after Syracuse, there really isn't a sufficient number 2.
No, and you take a look at Marquette, and they're trying to get that number 2. Obviously, the entire country isn't caring because no one knows about Marquette. They're 7th in the country. They've only lost 5 games, and they've all been in the conference. And you talk about the players on their team: Darius Johnson-Odom, wonderful player, and Jay Crowder is a Big East Player of the Year candidate, up there with Kevin Jones of West Virginia. Marquette is loaded. Georgetown, I feel like when I watch Georgetown, I have no idea who's on that team, but they always are doing really well.
One stat that jumped out to me about Marquette: Jay Crowder in his last 4 games, 23 points, 29 points, 27 and 26, and all of those have led to 4 straight wins to Marquette, which is getting them up to number 7. So really quick here, Matt, before we end the show, Marquette, Georgetown, who you got?
I got Marquette in this one. I got UNC in the other game.
Dude, I love my Golden Eagles, man. My friend goes there. I will root for Marquette all the time. Duke, UNC, you know what? I think I like the Dukies in Cameron, even though a lot of people picked Carolina
at home
at Chapel Hill, but I like Duke with the crazies to take it.
I'm a big fan of Marquette as well. I love the way Buzz Williams coaches. He's really an emotional coach. Wears his emotions
You saw that dance, right?
Oh, yeah.
Saw the two-step.
Saw the dance.
That
was fantastic.
And I will also go with UCAS, and I'll take Duke at home. So we're out of time right here on Cyclone InCYders. I want to give a big shout out to the people behind the scenes: Ricky McFarland, Katie Longnecker, Aaron Murphy, Andrew Schneider, and Justin Houston. Couldn't do it without them. Come back next Tuesday at 8:30 right here for Cyclone InCYders.